Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for your host, Sainiana
Nakalatia.
All right, family and friends, aloha. Aloha. Wrong village. Next door over there. The greetings at the Islands of Hawaii, the host island, of course. In Fiji, we greet you by saying Bula Vinaka. Everyone say Bula Vinaka. Bula Vinaka. Bula simply means hello, and Vinaka conveys a message of good day or good health. Be with you now and always. All right, family? Now, by show of hands, how many of you have been to Fiji? Take a good look at these fine people over here. If you have any question about Fiji, you know who to ask right over here. How about the rest of you? Never been to Fiji? What's wrong with you? Would you like to go to Fiji? Yeah. Yes. Our good people here from Oregon, they want to go to Fiji as well. That's right. The border's closed right now, but when they open, we'll all go and visit the beautiful country of mine. A little bit about Fiji before we start our presentation this afternoon. We are located about 3,200 miles southwest of the Hawaiian group of islands. If you remember, Australia and New Zealand down at the very bottom, so Fiji is about 4 hours away from Australia, about 6 to 7 hours from here. If you're coming from the mainland, about 13 hours from LA to Fiji. Okay? It's been a long flight from LA. Even though they're only 6 to 7 hours away from here, they are 22 hours ahead of us by time. It is 4:30 now in Hawaii. It is 2:30 in Fiji tomorrow. It's already the weekend in Fiji, Saturday afternoon in Fiji. Okay? They're 22 hours ahead of us. As far as the population goes, there are over almost 1 million people now in Fiji. Okay? And 50% of whom are native Fijian like myself, dark skinned and good looking. That's right. And the other 50% are people from all over the world that now live in Fiji and call Fiji their home. Okay? And also, but economic-wise, tourism is big in the islands. Name any big resorts that you may be familiar with, they have the same ones in Fiji as well. They even have a Daisy Inn over there in the middle of nowhere. Okay? Wyndham, Marriott, those are the hotels they have over there, and other resorts as well. We were sealed to Great Britain in 1874. 1970, we gained our independence from Great Britain, and now we're about 50 years young as an independent nation of Fiji. Okay, if you've been following the Olympic Games, Fiji won the rugby gold medal in rugby sevens. Yeah. They love their rugby in Fiji. So that's a little bit about Fiji, the country. We can all go there when the borders open. But for now, sit back and relax and enjoy this presentation. We'll tell you the story about how we end up in Fiji many, many years ago. Here to tell our story will be my good friend, Savaira. How about big hand for Savaira?
Around 4,000 years ago, the southern and eastern Pacific Islands were completely uninhabited. Any present humans existed only in fringes of the western Pacific Islands in places like the Solomons, Papua New Guinea, and the Tasmania Islands referred today as the Polynesian Islands. Now, scientific evidence proves that these people have inhabited the islands for more than 20,000 years. They were a hunter and gatherer culture that lived in small family units and small villages isolated from the rest of the population. Around 2500 BC, these islanders were suddenly replaced by a new branch of humanity. These newcomers intrepidly stormed through the region, rapidly colonizing and pushing east towards the rising sun. They were fierce warriors and great seafarers who built and sailed on huge double-hulled canoes that carried 200 to 300 people. They brought with them a new culture, a new language, one rooted in the Austronesian language that evolved out of Southeast Asia and is spoken today in Eastern Pacific Islands. They were a polytheistic society, one that practiced animism and built sacred temples of worship like this one. The high priest has just offered prayers on behalf of the people, asking the gods to bless the chiefs and the people with power and strength. Notice that the temple is highly elevated. The belief was the taller the structure, the closer the communication was with ancestral gods. The gods have granted the people and their chiefs blessings. These newcomers introduced a social hierarchy system where chiefly titles were inherited by bloodline, and high chiefs were believed to be the descendants of ancestral gods. Our chief wears a likuvoivoi, or skirt made from dried pandanus leaves. Around his arms and ankles are a vesa braided from the fibers of the coconut husk, a mother pearl shell around his neck. He holds a war club in his hand, symbols of power and authority. The chief will invite his people to join him a dance that depicts their arrival to this newfound land. Areas of the larger islands of Fiji, they continued to live and practice traditions. They brought with them things like the making of bark cloth called masi from the paper mulberry plant and the weaving of mats and baskets from dried pandanus leaves. Today, the art of making these bark cloth, mats, and baskets is being practiced all throughout Polynesia. However, there is one unique tradition that is no longer practiced today in Polynesia, and that is the art of making pottery. These clay potteries were known as Lapita pottery. This Lapita pottery is a low-fired earthenware pottery tempered with shell or sand. It is typically decorated with motifs that are unique and can be found today in many Polynesian art such as tattoos and bark cloth. Shards and fragments of this Lapita pottery have been uncovered throughout Polynesia in places like Nukuleka in Tonga, Mulifanua in Upolu Samoa, and Tahiti or French Polynesia. Now, hundreds of years later, after the Lapita culture and its people integrated into their new environment and established themselves as the dominant people, the polished and decorated tooth of a sperm whale became the most valued and highly priced cultural item in Fiji. It is called the tambua. Everybody say it with me, tambua. Tambua. Yes. The tambua or whale's tooth were presented as gifts for atonement or esteem and were important in negotiations with rival chiefs. It is also used in a traditional ceremony called dungudi, where the family of a male presents a tambua asking a father for his daughter's hand in marriage. What you are about to witness is a reenactment of a marriage proposal made by the rival chief to the high chief of the host village for his daughter's hand in marriage. These marriage proposals are usually done to solidify and forge alliances. The ceremony begins with the beating of the wooden drum, calling for the people to assemble and await the arrival of the visiting party. This visiting party will arrive at the chiefly residence, will call out, This is the highest form of respect that chiefs accord each other, acknowledging ranks and titles. The ceremony is observed with strict protocols. Only honorific language of chiefs and nobles are used in ceremonies such as this. The spokesperson of the rival chief will find a way to connect his chief to the host chief through ancestral lineage, before stating their purpose of their visit, which is the marriage proposal. Before accepting the marriage proposal, the host chief summons his daughter and informs her of the visitor's marriage proposal. The daughter, understanding the importance of forging the new alliance with the rival chief, has agreed to the marriage proposal. Honestly, she has no choice. The father informs the visitors that they have accepted the marriage proposal and will go ahead with the preparation. Family, we present to you the bride-to-be, who is the daughter of the high chief of the village. She wears a traditional ceremonial attire, an apron around her waist made from masi or bar cloth. She also wears a long trail, meaning the longer her trail, the higher her rank in society. Around her neck is a mbuli or white cowrie shell. Markings on her face are all symbols of her rank and status in Fijian society. Please give it up for a bride and groom-to-be. All right. Now, Fijian history and oral traditions talks a lot about rivalries between chiefs, tribal warfare, and conflicts between kingdoms. Christian missionaries documented some of these events as ferociously vicious and inhumane. Many weapons were used during these tribal conflicts, such as the motosaisai or the spear. The naiula or shot throwing club. The ula or shot throwing club is highly effective when your opponent is trying to escape. Never make a Fijian mad. But the most commonly used weapon is the manda or the iwao. This is used for close combat fighting and can do a lot of damage to your opponent. Our warriors will do for you. Sabundongu depicting some of these events in our history.
Singa ni sana munda orua matua mainela ni vatu orua matua mainela ni vatu bole kadi ni sara burabu bole kadi ni sara burabu kadi kiwanua uni salusalu kadi kiwanua uni salusalu uni salusalu Salu salu, uni salu salu, uni salu salu. Ni baka sarawano to, ni baka sarawano to, ni bala butu kurwar tau balikana, butu kurwar tau balikana. Bosai mana mai na kaumara, bosai mana mai na kaumara. To ni bala bole mana, to ni bala bole mana. Bala.
At the beginning of the 19th century, the first Christian missionaries arrived in our islands, and our chiefs and their people were converted to the new faith. Temples such as this were replaced with chapels and churches. New customs, traditions, and values were adopted and integrated with the old ones. Bar cloth and grass skirts were no longer worn but reserved for traditional ceremonial purposes. Instead, this became the formal attire. Back in the days when the presentation of a sperm whale's tooth were used to ask a father for his daughter's hand in marriage, today it is done only as a formality. What precedes that is a Western-style marriage proposal. Aw, she said yes, guys! Aw, give it up for our couple! Now, with the introduction of modern musical instruments, we dance to like this.
Come on, guys, let's go!
Malawani matata, kambu kambu tuna wendelan, serenana limesoko na wanga, ukimelo setaura dalema, my, oh my, daru my guy, kuina moto melele itai, hey!
Now, it's customary in the islands of Fiji when significant guests like to arrive on our shores and leave our shores, we sing our favorite song, Isale. Isale has a lot of meanings, but today it simply means thank you and we hope to see you again soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you understand that you being here today, you have contributed to the educational funds of all these students studying at Brigham Young University, of which I have the privilege of introducing to you. Up first is Devita, who's studying exercise sports science. Next up is Wengaravi, who is majoring in social work. Please give it up for Chimaima, who is majoring in anthropology. Up next is Brendan Swan, who is majoring in home economics. Here at the back is Elijah, who is majoring in biomed. And lastly but not least is Selai, who is majoring in psychology. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you again soon.
As the sun rises from the east and sets in the west, we are constantly reminded of our ancestors, braving through the open ocean and settling in Fiji 2,500 years ago. And that is our story. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation as much as we've enjoyed presenting it to you. Inaksarva levu ni samodi.
Thank you again, family. Hope you have a great afternoon and aloha!